This video is the first in a series demonstrating SecureCRT's Logon Actions Expect Send feature, which can help automate initial actions when opening a session. In this video, I'll provide a brief introduction to SecureCRT's Credential Manager, and then I'll show how to automate a connection to a Nortel Switch which requires a unique interaction to initiate a logon sequence. I'll also show how to take the automation even further by sending an enable command along with the required password to elevate into privileged exec mode. Before I dive into my first demonstration scenario, I'm going to open the Tools menu in SecureCRT, select Manage Saved Credentials, and briefly show what I have configured in SecureCRT's Credential Manager. The Credential Manager is a database of usernames and encrypted passwords that can be referenced during the automations I'm going to demonstrate. There's an entry I'll need that I haven't yet added, and I'll demonstrate how to add a new entry to the Credential Manager once I get to that point. Okay, for my first demonstration, I'm going to connect to a Nortel switch manually, then I'll use that experience as a reference when working to automate the interaction. When I connect to this switch, I need to press Ctrl-Y to continue. Then I see a username prompt, and after entering the username, I press Enter and I see a password prompt. I type in the password and press Enter to submit, and then I'm logged into the system. Now I'm going to disconnect and scroll back in the buffer to review the interaction. The first thing I need to wait for is this text referencing Ctrl-Y. Once that has been received, I'll need to send a Ctrl-Y character. Now I don't recall exactly how to encode a Ctrl-Y character, so I'm going to open SecureCRT's built-in help, search for ASCII, and open this ASCII control codes topic. This blurb about octal codes is important, so when I scroll down and find the Ctrl-Y entry, I can see that its corresponding octal encoding would be a \031. I'll keep that value in mind. Next in my login sequence, I saw the username prompt, where I sent the username, and then a password prompt where I submitted my password. Knowing all this, I'll open Session Options, navigate to the Logon Actions category, and kick things off by enabling the Automate Logon option. Earlier, when I did this manually, I didn't press Enter to get anything started, so I'm going to disable the Send Initial Carriage Return option up here on the right, and then I'll press the Add button to create a new entry. In the Expect field here, I'll enter the phrase Ctrl-Y to begin, because that's the last unique thing that will appear to indicate the device is ready for input. And in the Send field, I'll put that \031 value for Ctrl-Y that I found in SecureCRT's help. This Send Trailing Carriage Return option is new in SecureCRT version 9.7, and it controls whether or not the data in the Send field includes a terminating carriage return, which simulates pressing the Enter key. By default, this option is enabled, but in the case of this Ctrl-Y automation, I want to turn off the Send Trailing Carriage Return option. Otherwise, a carriage return will be sent right after the Ctrl-Y, and that would likely result in an empty username being submitted. And I don't want to introduce that sort of problem into the automation I'm trying to accomplish. I'll save this one and add a new logon action that expects the username prompt. I can see that there are special commands listed here that I can use in a Send field. A full list of all the special commands can be found in SecureCRT's built-in help within the topic titled Send String and Function Key Commands. I could type in the username here, but I want to future-proof this configuration, so I'm going to use a saved credential entry instead. And these two commands look promising for what I want to accomplish. A \s would send the username from a specified credential entry, and \w would send its saved password value. So I'm going to use \s here in the Send field to send the username associated with the selected credential. I haven't created a credential entry for the Nortel Switch yet, so I'll do that now by clicking this Credentials button, which brings up the Credential Manager. I'll press the Add button here to add a new entry for the Nortel Switch. I'll enter the username required to log in. I'll make sure the password authentication method is enabled, and I'll open its properties window so I can set the password field and confirm it. As a quick note, SecureCRT's Credentials Manager interface is currently coupled very tightly to the SSH2 protocol, which is why these authentication methods are seen here. Whether I choose to store a value for either the password or the keyboard interactive authentication method, the value is stored only in one place within the underlying Credential Manager data. Changing the value for either one of these methods will change the other one, since these two methods are linked to the same value. The SSH2 protocol is not required in order to leverage data stored in the Credentials Manager. One could simply treat the Credentials Manager as a key value database with the title of the entry being the key and reference either the username or password fields as needed. I'll also note that the password or keyboard interactive value is encrypted within the configuration, but the username and credential title are stored in plain text. I'll save my changes, close the Credentials Manager, and now I can select that new credential entry here in the Logon Actions window. In review, the \s here sends the username value from the selected credential. I'll also note that in this case, I want to leave the Send Trailing Carriage Return option enabled. That way I don't have to manually press Enter to submit the username, and I'll save this entry. I'll add another expect send entry for the password prompt, selecting that same credential entry and using \w to send its saved password value. The main reason for using a saved credential entry here in combination with the \s and \w commands is it helps me future-proof my configuration against any potential credential changes. For example, if my device password ever changes, I won't have to edit any of my existing saved sessions. I'll only need to go into the Tools menu, expand the Change Credentials Password, and choose the corresponding entry to update the password. And all of the Logon actions which refer to this entry will automatically begin to employ the new password value the next time it is used. I'll save all these changes and try connecting to see what happens. If I scroll back a bit, I can see where Control-Y was sent, along with the username and the password, each entered at the exact moment they were needed, not too soon, yet as soon as they could be, and I'm logged into my device successfully. Now I'm going to take this a little bit further since in most cases, I want to end up in privileged execution mode. Normally I would manually enter the enable command and type in my password like this. However, with Logon Actions, I can go ahead and automate that activity. I'll open Session Options, and in the Logon Actions category, I'll press the Add button to add a new expect send entry. For the expect field, I'll simply put in the greater than sign, which appears at the very end of my shell prompt. It doesn't appear anywhere else in the output yet, so it's a unique enough character to use in this context. In the Send field, I'll enter the Enable command. I do want to simulate pressing the Enter key to submit the command, so I'll leave the Send Trailing Carriage Return option enabled, and I'll press OK to save that entry. I'll press Add once again and create an entry that expects the password prompt and sends the enable password for my device. While this password may not change often, I want to continue with the best practice of using the Credentials Manager, so I'll add a new entry for the Nortel Switch enable password. I'll leave the username field blank, and I'll edit the password's properties, type my enable password, confirm it in the second field, and save my changes. Then I can use the \w in the Send field to send the password found in the credential. Now when I connect to my session, the entire sequence plays out and I'm connected, authenticated, and privileged execution mode is enabled for me automatically. I'll mention that I can take this even further. As an example for times when I want to be in config mode right after connecting, I'll duplicate the existing session and rename it to have a CFG designation. I won't have to recreate any of the existing Logon actions. I can simply add a new entry which expects the hash character associated with the privileged mode shell prompt and sends the configure command to get into configure mode. When I connect, I can see that all those actions are automated for me. That's all for this introduction to SecureCRT's Logon Actions feature. In the next video, I'll be demonstrating how to automate jump host hops by getting connected to a jump host server and automating the SSH command that I need to run to get connected to a secondary host. Until the next video, stay secure, my friends.